following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Lovin' baseball when we were 12 and innocent. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and my guest is former professional baseball player and son of a Major League Baseball player, Jeff Heaverlo, the Tuna's son. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Mr. Tycho. I know you told me not to call you Mr. Tycho, but I appreciate you having me on the air.
Well, the pleasure is mine. I've heard a lot about you from a mutual friend, Ricky Gott, who.
Yes, I want to say hello to Ricky Gott.
Okay, please do. He is the one man in Texas that seems to have a brain these days. And that wasn't a backhanded compliment. Ricky is terrific, and
yes.
His state may be a little backward, but that's the way it goes. We can't all be progressives. Jeff,
well, I'm as backward as Ricky.
Okay. Well, that's good, because sometimes you got to go back to go forward. How about that?
But it's better to go backwards. It reminds me of Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Yes, absolutely. Jeff, I want to take this from the start, and then we're going to talk about your fascinating life. But starting when you were 12, go back to your age 12.
Okay.
Your dad was a major leaguer.
Yes.
What was it like being the son of a major leaguer, and what are your early memories of when you were 12 and innocent?
My folks got divorced, and this is not going to be a sob story, but my folks got divorced when I was 7, and I decided I lived with my mom. I have 2 brothers, Jesse and Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to live with my mom for a while, and I thought that I might have a shot at being able to play baseball throughout, go further in my career in baseball. So I ended up moving to a small town called Heaverlo, Washington, and to live with my dad, because I figured I'm going to have a pitching coach. My dad played 7 years in the big leagues and was a pitching coach for another 4 or 5 years. And I thought to myself, why not move over and have a 24-hour-a-day pitching coach instead of having to call my dad on the phone and ask him questions?
Right.
And
What for a child, a youngster, what a wise decision. Where did that come from?
The small town my dad lived in was called Heaverlo, and and I'm sorry, I don't want to say I know my dad had a radio show, and he said you don't say But anyways, the town that I moved to, the head coach had won 7 state championships.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, I want to pitch, and that's a lot. I don't know about where. I know you're in Alameda, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Alameda, California.
Yeah,
the gateway to San Francisco.
Yeah, my dad. We used to live. I grew up I was born in Stanford Hospital. My dad played for the Giants in the Oakland A's, and we lived in San Mateo, and we lived in. Where's the other place we lived? Not Pasadena.
Foster City.
We lived in Foster City.
Okay.
And
a lot of Giants lived in Foster City. It was just a hop, skip, and a jump from there to Candlestick.
Yeah, the Candlestick. See, a lot of people don't remember Candlestick Park. My dad told me that there'd be a pop fly to second base, and his third baseman would catch it because the wind blew so much.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And it was a cold wind. That if you ever remember being out there at night, it was very cold. I want to get back to
one thing I got from my dad, though, was as a pitcher, you preferred to pitch in cold wind because no hitter wants to hit in cold weather.
That's right. And one of the things the Giants did was use that cold and the wind to their advantage.
Yes,
and,
you're exactly right.
If they're ready for it, because they play on it in the weather on a regular basis. Imagine if it's tough for them. Imagine what a team coming from LA or Arizona, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
Warm weather, you come into that freezing night. They had in those days what they called the Craw de Candlestick, or something to that. And if you went to a night game and stayed to its completion in the cold, they issued you a little pin, a plastic pin on your way out that people would keep on their caps and what have you. It was like a badge of honor just to be in the stadium.
Yeah, the fact that you stuck it out.
That cold. Yeah, imagine putting that into perspective. Imagine what it was to have pitched there. You mentioned to me when we first met off the air on Facebook that your dad would like to come on, and sometime. So, with that in mind, why don't you tell me some stories of what you remember about your dad?
Well, mostly, when I was growing up, my dad's career ended when I was 3 years old. But I do remember sitting by the fireplace and we had the blower on. Remember the old blowers you hook up to your fireplace?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, I'd sit there in front of it and listen on the radio, and they're like, now pitching Dave Heaverlo. But my dad was known for most of his career as he was a jokester.
Okay.
And well, there was one. First of all, I got to ask you something, if that's okay.
Sure.
Hey, did you take it? Did you take the fork in the road, like Yogi Berra said? If you come to a fork in the road, take it.
You recognize that I posted a picture without an explanation of a fork in the road, and you recognized it. Yogi was an incredible icon. I grew up in the 50s watching, having the privilege of watching not only Yogi and the Yankees, but before they moved the Dodgers and the Giants as well. It was a great time, and I think about Yogi on a daily basis. He was the common man's philosopher. So,
sir, I got to ask you: did you take it?
I did.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
I can't tell you the destination it took me to because that's X-rated. But
okay. That sounds terrible. That sounds terrible.
Oh, it is terrible. For you youngsters out there, be careful.
So anyway, so getting back to my dad, if that's okay. I don't want to. I'm so sorry if I cut you off. I'm so sorry about that. No,
man, you just go with it. I just want to hear your voice and your reminiscence, and eventually we'll get back to what it was like for you at age 12. And the reason I use that age is because at age 12, we are all of us were, and open to our passion. And
I knew from day one I wanted to be like my dad, and I wanted to play professional baseball. That's what I wanted. That's just that's why I moved to Ephrata, and I remember sitting back in my mom's station wagon watching one of my younger brother his soccer game, and I told her, I said the best thing I ever did was move to Ephrata, and she got a little hurt about that.
As mothers tend to do, and until they realized it was in your best interest.
Yeah, and you know, as I got older in life, she told me that my mom, Lenny Heaverlo, she's a huge inspiration for me. She took me to practices and to games. My dad gave me the wisdom, and I'm lucky enough that I have a friend of mine who played in the big leagues with the Pirates and the Braves. He built a complex, and he asked me, and so there's a Mariners jersey, number 60, and a Giants jersey, number 60. My dad wore number 60 when he played in the big leagues.
Right.
And at the time, he wore the highest. Is before Carlton Fisk went to 72. He wore, Carlton Fisk wore number 27 for so many years.
And it was taken on the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken. So he went to 70. I think Harold Baines had that number. I could be wrong, but
well, for a long time, my dad wore the highest number in baseball. And I talked with. Do you remember Peter Gammons?
I sure do. He's tremendous from Boston. Tremendous.
Yeah,
writer.
you're a baseball guy. So Peter came and saw me when I played in the Cape Cod League, and he said, "Hey, I went through the roster, and I saw your name, Heaverlo." And he's like, "Your dad is the first guy I ever saw back in the 70s." He said most people had long hair. Most white guys had long hair. Most black guys had afros. He said, your dad had the first shaved head I'd ever seen.
How did he get the nickname Tuna?
So he was playing cards one time on a flight, and he was losing money right and left. And one guy said, "This is easy catching tuna." And another player said, "Catching tuna's not easy." He said, he's from tuna country, Washington, and it's salmon country. It's not tuna country.
but tuna stuck. Tuna stuck. It much better than salmon, and there already was a salmon. Chico Salmon or Leo Salmon played in the 50s too. So I'm glad it was tuna, and that stuck. Let me ask you, did your dad ever talk about Mike Sadek?
Oh, yeah. I got to meet Mike. I went to fantasy camp when I was a senior in high school, and Mike Sadek was there. And I'm so sorry to hear about his daughter.
And himself, Mike passed away within the last month.
Mike was my dad's catcher. And
right.
I got to meet Tommy Davenport, Tom Howler, Mike McCormick, and I got to tell you a funny story about a guy named Vida Blue.
Your dad was traded for Vida Blue.
Yeah.
Was he in that trade? Wasn't he in that?
Yeah, along with 6 others and $150,000.
Okay, wow.
But hey, Mr. Tycho, I've got a good story about Vida.
Okay, Mr. Heaverlo.
We're at fantasy camp, and we're sitting around a fire pit, and we've all got our feet up on the bricks. And Vida was telling stories, and there was a bunch of fantasy campers around. And I look at Vida. I said, Vida, man, I said, you're on fire. And he's like, yeah, no, these are good stories. I said, no. Vida's loafers had caught on fire.
Literally. Did somebody give him a hot
from
foot?
The fire pit. No, so all of us, we were, I was of age, and we were all drinking beer. We all had to pour our beers on Vida's feet to put the fire out because his loafers caught on fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
Getting back, you want to hear some stories about Tuna? About my old man?
I do indeed.
He got his arm caught in an elevator one time. And it was back when he was playing with Oakland, and they had lost. They ended up losing 108 games that year. It was the worst. It was the biggest losing team in Major League Baseball history.
Okay.
And he got on the elevator, and he looked, and he just said, hey, looks like we're not making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, that was Tom Hallow was the general manager of that team, if I'm not mistaken. And
Tom Haller was a great man. He was a great man.
I did many shows with his son Timmy, and you're absolutely correct about. And I had the privilege, one of those shows, of interviewing Tom's brother, who was an umpire in the American League. And,
okay, I never met him.
Well, he was just a terrific interview as well. Tom was not only a good baseball man, he was a good man. And
he was a really good human being.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And as is his son Timmy, who hasn't been on for a while. I'm hoping he'll come back and share some memories of when he was 12, as you're doing. And I want to ask you a question because you.
Oh, of course, of course.
Because
I'm an open book, man. I don't. And just like my dad's an open book. He's not going to sugarcoat anything, just like I won't.
Okay. I had to Google you, and it said that one of the reasons there was a substance abuse problem, and that's one of the things that curtailed your career. I hope you're comfortable with that question. But
it's fine. It's fine.
I just want you to pursue that and tell me what was that a phase in your life? Are you still fighting demons?
So see, the thing is, I remember growing up hearing all these stories from my dad, and. I'll get back to I'll answer, but I want to tell you a funny story. My dad was on the bus one day, and Billy Martin and Cleet Boyer was the pitching coach, and so they used to hand out sack lunches on the bus. And at the time, they had like an orange, a sandwich, a bag of chips. And my dad gets asked, because he was a player rep, and he gets asked to sit at the front of the bus. Billy Martin says, hey, Tuna, you got control of the bus. And somebody was like, all right, Billy,
Right.
He said, I'm okay with that. So somebody on the bus says, hey, Tuna, we're out of beer. My dad doesn't answer. And he hears, hey, Tuna, we're out of beer. And all of a sudden, an orange comes flying from the back of the bus and splatters up against the windshield. So my dad asks the bus driver to pull over to a mini mart. And he does. And he grabs a rookie and says, hey, come here, Rook. That's just what you call him, Rook.
Right.
they go in, and my dad's got 2 cases on one shoulder, 2 cases on the other. The rookie has, I don't remember who the rookie was, but he's carrying 4 cases. So as they're walking out, they've got to walk across the street to get on the bus. And a car comes driving by. And it's Clete Boyer and Billy Martin, and they just throw empty beer cans at my dad and this rookie. and my dad's like, yeah, that was Billy. So he gets back on the bus, and everyone was happy because they had their beer.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hey, Mr. Tycho, you can't make this crap up.
No, you can't. No, and it isn't crap. These are sincere memories.
My dad tells me these stories. My dad tells me these stories, and that was, getting back to your question. Yeah, I did. I had an alcohol problem, but it's because of all these stories I heard, and I'm not blaming my father by any means. I want you to know that, and I want the listeners to know I'm not blaming my father for anything. But my idea of icing my arm down it wasn't wrapping an ice pack on my arm. It was going to the store and getting a 12-pack. And, it did. I talked to an old pitching coach of mine, Scott Budner is his name. And he's just a great guy who all he cared about was trying to better – it was all for the betterment of us young pitchers. He was my pitching coach in A-ball. And he told me something, and I'm not going to lie, it was kind of embarrassing because he said, Scott Budner told me, he said, Jeff, everyone in the Mariners organization knew you had what it took. He said, you just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And he brought up the alcohol issue, and I never did drugs, just so you know. I never got into steroids. It wasn't my thing. I had roommates that, I walked in on 2 of them sticking a needle in their ass. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, you did, and you're allowed to say anything you want because.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not going out of bounds, if you know what I mean.
No, there is no out of bounds in podcast radio.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to swear a lot, Mr. Tycho. I would never do that. But I walked in, and they had needles in their butts. And one of them told me, hey, this is in AA. He said, hey, we're going to El Paso tomorrow. He said, I can hook you up. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Because do you remember a third baseman for the Padres named Ken Caminiti?
Yes, tragically passed away.
Yeah, he passed away at 39 years old.
Yeah, and he was an MVP, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember, but he was a hell of a player.
Right.
I'll never forget when he threw the guy out at first from his butt from third base.
Yes, I have a vague memory of that highlight film material. Yeah, it was a strange chapter in baseball that ironically is still going on. I mean, not just steroids, but human growth hormones and all kinds of stuff. And that's why when we, I'm putting my quote.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I love it.
When we talk about who is better, who is greater, Aaron or Williams, and you can go back in history. You have to compare era to era because each era has its own peculiarities, if not just drugs, segregation, this, that, and the other thing. But so if we compare eras to eras, in Bonds' era, he was the greatest hitter in baseball. Yeah. In Ted Williams' era, Ted Williams was the greatest hitter in baseball.
Well, I've never seen anyone flip a bat the way that Barry Bonds could flip a bat. And I don't mean like bat flip after a home run. I mean how his hands got through.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
You're talking about. Yep. He had the Ernie Banks wrists along with incredible timing. And he would, like Ted Williams, take that base on balls. I think
Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks was phenomenal.
Yes, no question.
Willie Mays was amazing. I think Willie Mays might be the greatest hitter of all time.
Yeah,
even better than Babe Ruth.
As it's hard to say.
No, hey, buddy, I got to tell you right now, Ralph.
I tried to make that comparison with your friend. No,
I was told to bring it up, Ralph.
Okay.
Ricky told me. Ricky told me. He said, "Hey,
I knew.
Bring it up."
I knew. I've had the argument before, and like I told Ricky, he had Gretzky-like statistics.
Yeah.
Babe Ruth did. And because they always say about Gretzky, he had Babe Ruth-like statistics. He superseded anybody of his time.
Yeah. I know. I was told to bring that up.
And
Ricky told me. He said, bring it up to Ralph because he's going to get pissed.
No, not this. Just argumentative.
I know.
Remind Ricky that no one loved Willie more than I did. I saw the Giants play in the Polo Grounds before Willie was called up in 1951 and after he was called up in 1951. And my grandfather led me through the change in the lineup. Bobby Thompson was going to become a third baseman, and Monty Irvin was going to exchange.
The shot heard around the world.
Right. Incredibly interesting comparison, and a terrific argument can be made. Who is the greatest of all time? Ricky says Willie.
Oh, I don't.
I say Babe.
I don't think you can have a greatest of all time because and I want you to know that I'm 43 years old. I don't know how old you are. You sound like you're about 51.
I may be 51 plus. How about that? If we just leave it there.
We'll take that.
Okay.
But one thing I'm lucky enough to have that in my lifetime, I got to meet the baby bull. Orlando Cepeda.
Yes, that must have been terrific. I got to meet Malcolm Cepeda, his nephew, when he was playing in Eugene.
Okay.
He never made it to the bigs, but
neither did I. I never made it to the bigs.
That's all right. It's the effort. You know
what it is, honestly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, it's your show. I don't want to be rude on your show.
It's our show today, Jeff.
Okay.
Just talk and relax.
I'm sorry. I was full of anxiety before this phone call, like completely full of anxiety. And I was like, I called Ricky and I was like, yeah, I'm scared to call Ralph because I'm afraid
You're not feeling that now, are you? You're comfortable?
No. I feel like we're sitting at a restaurant having just a conversation.
That's exactly what my podcast has been like for 10 years.
Okay, well,
I just chat with people.
I'm just so grateful that you allowed me to come on to your podcast.
It's my pleasure to have you. You're an interesting person who has an interesting story to tell. So you're an additive to my life. Thank you very much.
I hope we can do this again. I truly hope we can do this again.
How about we do this next time and your dad calls in as well, and the three of us chat?
Oh, my dad's going to tell stories about me. I might as well get him out there. So I got called up to varsity high school baseball, right? And
right.
It was against a small school. It was my sophomore year. My dad got invited to go up to the press box and to broadcast the game. And I didn't see my dad. You know, I was in the dugout and getting prepared to go out and pitch. But I got home and I put the tape. Remember tapes? Not a DVD, but a tape.
Hey, I remember. I remember a lot of things, but I don't want to date myself. Tapes weren't that far long ago, so
okay. Well,
it's
I'm
right before the digital world. There was tapes.
Yes. So I'm listening to the tape, and I ended up going out and I threw a 2-hit shutout. We won 1-0 against the best team in our league. And wow. I'm excited thinking my dad's going to say some great things. So I turned the tape on, and I'm listening, you know, first, second, third inning, and I threw a bad pitch. And my dad made a comment. He's like, I don't know why my son threw that pitch in that situation.
Yeah, overly critical.
Honestly, I was like, it's 4 innings in. I'm throwing a shutout.
What's the biggest piece of advice your dad ever gave you about making the transition to professional ball?
It's easy. He said, you better keep your composure. He said, because umpires, if you show up an umpire, you're screwed the rest of your outing. You're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get the ball back from my catcher, and I hope we're not running out of time. I want to tell you a funny story. But my dad always told me, he said, keep your composure. Don't show up an umpire. He said the umpire can be your best friend ever. Because you might be just a guy that throws hard, and he said, Jeff, you don't throw very hard. I didn't throw very hard. He said, but if you have movement, the umpire might give you a strike. You might get the Greg Maddux effect, and you might throw a ball off the plate, but they're going to call it a strike. And I asked him, I said, well, Dad, you know, I was in the van driving. I wasn't driving. He was driving. He said, no, Jeff, just shut your mouth and show the umpire that you can hit the same spot multiple times. That was one of the best pieces of advice I got from my father. But one of the worst ones was when he played for Maury Wills with the Mariners.
Didn't remember
I don't know
that.
If you want...
Your dad played with the Mariners. Very interesting. I do remember Lindsey Nelson making the remark after Maury Wills had been let go. He said, I was taking a cab to the ballpark this morning, and my cab driver was Maury Wills. He jokingly said, that sticks in my head. Maury Wills was the reason that I worked for Topps.
Maury Wills was the reason my dad he ended up, they had a meeting one day. And my dad, was with the Mariners at the time. And Maury Wills had a no drinking policy. My dad walked into a meeting with a 12-pack. No, my dad wanted out of there.
Okay.
I know it's a terrible story, but my dad, so he ended up getting traded back. He walked off the field during batting practice and waved to his teammates. Like, yeah,
wow.
Well, see y'all later.
Your dad had a radio show you mentioned. Your dad had a radio show you mentioned. What,
yeah. He had a sports talk show for 30-plus years.
For how long?
For 30-plus years.
Oh, I would have loved to have heard that. He sounds like he was just out there with his feelings. And he was a character. No question about that.
In all honesty, he didn't bite his tongue.
Right.
And honestly, when I got released by the Mariners, I didn't bite my tongue. I was told I was going up to the big leagues twice in my career, that my last year with Seattle. And so I get called into the manager's office. Dan Roan was his name, and he played for the Cubs. He played against my dad. Hey, do me a favor, before we get off the air, remind me, I want to tell you a story about Lou Piniella.
All right.
And I got to tell you a story about the Cubs.
If
you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. You just keep talking, but finish your thought on the way the Mariners treated you. And I think that coincides with being 12 before Lovin baseball, when we were innocent. By this time in your life, what you want to do is when you, at 12 years old, you kind of make up your mind. You don't say, I want to be a janitor. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. In all honesty, you want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a baseball player. That's all I wanted. And I was lucky enough to get a chance when I got older. And it reminds me of a quote that Johnny Bench said. I know you know Johnny Bench. He said in fourth grade. Well, okay, he said in fourth grade, the teacher asked what we want to do when we grow up in life. And he said, I want to be a baseball player. And he said, everybody laughed. In seventh grade, the teacher asked, what do you want to do in life? I want to be a baseball player, professional baseball player. Everybody laughed. He said, by 11th grade, no one was laughing. That was my senior quote. That was my senior quote in high school. That is a great attitude to take.
Here's the thing. I hope if any parents out there are listening, I know there are, but if they have kids, I came from a small town, Mr. Tycho. I came from a small town. But you know what? I put my ass to the grindstone. And I know what the saying is, I put my nose at the grindstone, but I put my ass at the grindstone. And I wanted to become the greatest pitcher that ever played at my high school. And you know what? Turns out I was the greatest pitcher to ever come out of my high school. When I went to the University of Washington, I set the record for strikeouts in a career, the wins in a career, and strikeouts in a season. And if you were to, I just want you to know, Mr. Tycho, if you were to go to the new stadium that's built at UW, you'll see two banners on one side of the concourse. It's Tim Lincecum, who, he won 3 Cy Young Awards with the Giants.
Absolutely.
The next banner is Jeff Heaverlo.
Wow.
And then there's a few more that wrap around the other side of the stadium on the right field side. There's only been 9 All-Americans, and you know what? I got to be one of them.
Wow.
And I hope your listeners aren't thinking that I'm trying to inflate myself. That's not the.
No.
Well, that's not what this conversation's about.
It ain't bragging if you've done it. Dizzy Dean said that. So you're not inflating. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your accomplishments. And I want to tell you that every boy growing up, not everyone, but baseball kids, dream about a career that you've experienced. Yeah. So the fact that you didn't make it to the majors, how many do? And how few get to play professional ball, and how few get to meet Spider Webb.
Oh, well, I'm lucky enough to have met Spider Webb. He was the trainer when I was an A-ball in Everett.
Right. And he was a great guy. He helped me for years.
He still is.
For the top guy, you go into a city and you've got contracts and gum and a whole bunch of stuff, and you've got to meet every player and tell, and Spider Webb made my job so easy for many years in Bellingham. I hope he hears this, and I hope he knows that how big a part of my memory he was.
I hope he remembers who Jeff Heaverlo was.
Oh, I'm sure he remembers who Jeff Heaverlo was. No question about that. Jeff, your transition from college ball to professional ball, what was that about?
It was really tough because in college ball, you're still playing, and I hope this doesn't sound terrible, but you're still playing for the fun of the game. In professional ball, you're playing for a paycheck, and the toughest part for me was, as a pitcher. Am I speaking really loud? I hope I'm not speaking too loud.
No, you're just fine. Believe me.
Okay, I just want to ask. Okay. The toughest part in professional ball is you realize you're playing for a paycheck now. And that's not easy. Because the child's game aspect is out the window now. Because it's a thing where you're like, okay, I'm facing you, hitter. I'm trying to take food off of his table, the hitter's table. Just like by getting him out, just like he's trying to take food off my table by getting a hit off me.
Absolutely.
So
and
it comes
so
more.
The intensity goes up, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, no, it becomes more of an FU mentality. And I'm sorry to the listeners out there. I didn't mean to be rude towards anyone, but that's how it is. If
they don't understand, fuck them.
Okay, well, you just dropped the F-bomb, so I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
But no, that's the big thing, Mr. Tycho, is you just learn it becomes a business. And that's one thing it takes a lot out of the game. It really does. It takes a lot out of the enjoyment of the game.
In Everett, that first year, who was your manager and pitching coach?
Oh, gee. So I only played in A-ball for about 11 days.
Okay.
I believe so. It was Terry Polreese. He used to coach at the University of Portland.
Okay.
And the pitching coach was Rafael Chavez. And I remember I went to a bar, Applebee's, and I was sitting there having a beer, and I saw my coaches, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go buy them around. So I do, and Terry Polreese looks at me and says, hey, you better get back to the hotel. You got an early morning. I said, we don't play until 7. He said, no, you're flying out to Wisconsin tomorrow.
Wow.
And I said, what? I felt like Scooby-Doo. No, I felt like Scooby-Doo. And so I got all excited, and I went back to my hotel room, and I went and shook my roommate up. Justin Smith was his name. He was another pitcher. And I said, hey, I'm going up tomorrow. And he told me, he's like, I don't care. He said, I'm not going up. And I said, okay.
You know, that's professional sports in a nutshell. That is incredible. Your teammates, but in essence, he and you were competing for the same position down the line. So,
that's one thing that I was lucky enough in spring training one year. Do you remember Jamie Moyer? He was a left-hander.
Yes, I do. I remember his baseball card well.
Okay, he sat down with us in spring training one year, and he had a meeting with us, and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to come after my job." And he had a speech, and I called my dad, and my dad's like, "Then go take it." You know, my dad doesn't bite his tongue. He said, "Go take it." He said, "Go take it." And I was like, "Yeah, but this is Jamie Moyer." He said, "Yeah, but you're Jeff Heaverlo." And I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah.
Can I tell you two of my favorite stories?
All right, please do.
So, my dad played for the Giants, and he played against Lou Piniella. And Lou Piniella was my manager one year, and I think your listeners are going to like this. So one year I'm on the mound, and I'm doing the position players had just shown up. And they're like, hey, we're doing bunt plays today. And so I said, okay. So I'm on the mound, and I look over, and I'm holding the ball in my glove. And I look over, and there's David Bell at third base. It was A-Rod's last year in Seattle.
Whoa.
Brett Boone was at second, and John Olerud was at first.
Wow.
So Mr. Tycho, I freeze, and I hear, step off. And it was Lou Piniella, and you know his frozen voice when you hear it. So I step off, drop the ball behind my back hip, and Brian Price was the pitching coach, who my dad was a pitching coach for, and my dad played against Lou Piniella, and I froze. They start laughing like what seemed like a year and a half later, but it was about 3 seconds later. And Lou Piniella says to me, and I just want to ask you, am I allowed to swear?
Are you allowed to swear?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, you are. Keep it in context.
He said, run the motherfucking play. He said, run the motherfucking play, God damn it. And I pause, and then they both start laughing. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Tycho, I'm scared shitless. Because I'm like, Lou Piniella just yelled at me. And he said, This is the big leagues now. He said, this is the big leagues now, kid. Run the play how it's supposed to be run. And I ran the bunt play.
Nice. Nice.
I'm sorry for the listeners out there. I'm sorry about my language, but
please don't apologize for anything. You're a terrific guest. Let's make this part one, and you come back and...
Hold on. I got another story for you. I got a Cubs story for you.
Okay, let me just do this then. I'm going to push a button and take an identification so we can get this up. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho. The guest is Jeff Heaverlo. We will be back in a second. I am back, and Jeff Heaverlo has been my guest. We're up against time. We're going to close it out. Jeff has one more great story. Tell us, Jeff.
Okay, so I'm playing against the Cubs. I come back from my shoulder surgery, and I'm playing against the Cubs in spring training. And this big son of a gun comes up, and Dan Wilson's catching, and he calls fastball down and away. So I throw a fastball down and away, and he pops up to right field. And he jogs by me because every time a ball's hit to that side of the field, you go towards first base. So I jog towards first base, and this guy jogs next to me, and it's Sammy Sosa. He's just hit 65 home runs the year before in the National League. So, and that was the first pitch. So my next pitch, I'm paying attention to who's being announced, and it's like now batting Derek Lee, and he just led the National League in batting average. So I go fastball in, he takes first strike. I go slider down and away. He's a right-handed hitter. He fouls it off down the third base line. I go slider away, fouls it off to third base. So I get the ball back from Scott Spezio, who was our third baseman at the time. And I told him, no, I'm not joking. I said, this shit's easy. I just got two of the greatest hitters out in the National League in 4 pitches.
You had to be flying high.
Oh, no. The next hitter, I give up a triple. I hit the next guy. I give up 2 singles in a row. Another triple over the center fielder's head. And so we're up 14-1 when I come in the game. I came and pitched the 5th inning. I get out of the inning, and we win the game 15-5 or 14-5. So I go to Hooters. Yeah, all you youngsters out there listening, Hooters is a great place. They got great food. I'm joking. Their food's terrible. So I go there, and I'm looking at the bottom. I'm looking at the bottom of the screen on ESPN, because they stream that, and it says win Seattle 14, loss Cubs 5, and it says winning pitcher Heaverlo, losing pitcher. You know what? I have no clue who the hell the losing pitcher was. I didn't care.
Winning pitcher Heaverlo.
I'm so sorry to take up so much time up for your listeners.
No, you're terrific. You're terrific. We're going to do it again, and I want you to know.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so.
I want you to know I'm just as appreciative in having you as you are in being on. So hope you're comfortable. I hope next time you won't be nervous. Hope next time you'll call me Ralph or Zig, not Mr. Tycho. And I really enjoy your company. Thank you, Jeff.
I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Tycho, and I'm not ready to call you Ralph yet because that's not very nice of me. But I'll tell you what.
I don't know what you mean, Jeff. But that's all right.
Well, I would love to be another a guest on your show again. If and I've got a lot more stories for you.
I am more than appreciative, my friend. Thank you. And
No, you've been such an amazing host, and I just want to say thank you.
Well, we belong to a mutual admiration society. Those were the lyrics on a Broadway play when I was a kid. So this was fun, and that's the name of the game. If
I had a blast.
If it ain't fun, it shouldn't be getting done. That's my philosophy.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Tycho, I had a blast just talking to you. I had an absolute. Hey, is there any way? I had a lot of friends ask me if they could listen to it. Is there any way for them to?
I'm going to send you a link to the show as soon as I post it, and you could send it to anybody you want. Put it on your Facebook, and
hey, but will you do me a favor?
I don't know. What is that favor, young man?
Oh, come on now. I'm an old man. I just wanted to ask if I could be, if it was okay if I'd be on your show again sometime.
Absolutely, and like I say, it'll be my privilege. And again, I thank you. I wish we didn't have time restraints and could go on all day.
Yeah.
Jeff Heaverlo
I'm gonna try to get my dad on next time.
Beautiful. Say hello from me. Tell him I'm sorry you lost his friend.
You'll love talking to him.
We lost a mutual friend in the Sheik, your dad and I.
Yeah, definitely.
I tell him how sorry I am. There is no one who ever played with Mike Sadek that didn't think he was the greatest teammate of all time. So
yeah, I got a chance to meet Mike. And I loved him. He was just a little guy, but he would always come up to me at spring train or at the fantasy camp, and he'd always be like, "Hey," they used to call me. My friend calls me Codfish.
Okay.
Because I was just a little guy.
Jeff, thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Guest Jeff Heaverlo.
Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. And I'm lucky enough to have met and spoken with
Mr.
Tycho.
Be well, Jeff. Thank you again. Adios,
okay,
everybody.
Sounds good. I can't wait to talk to you again, buddy.
Bye now.